The plan for processing the data from the Build a Bouquet form in the Hansel and Petal site involves identifying whether an array key begins with a known prefix and stripping it off. Before diving into the code, let's take a look at how to find and extract a substring. In this exercise file, one of the array keys we'll be working with has been assigned to a variable called original on line 2. What we need to do is to find out whether it begins with color underscore, color underscore, and if it does, extract the final part, in this case color lilies, the name of the flower. So to find the position of a substring within another string, you use a function which has an impossible name, strpos, which stands for string position, and it takes 2 arguments. The first one is the string that you want to search, and the second is the substring that you're looking for. So let's try that out. On line 14, I'm going to add a PHP block, and we want to display the result of strpos, so it will be echo and then strpos, and the string that we're looking at, which is called original, and what we're looking for needs to be a string. We're looking for color underscore, then a closing parenthesis and our semicolon. We need to do the same with color, so let me copy that and paste. And we're going to be looking for color, and it's case sensitive, so that C must be in uppercase. So this will give us the position of those strings within the longer string. Let's save that and go to a browser to check it out. And we need to go to localhost/exercises, and we're in chapter 05. It's 05_05, and the file is called substring.php. And there are the values. The position of color is 0. The position of color is 6. This works like an array, that the numbering begins at 0. And the fact that the first one begins at 0 creates a little bit of a problem. Let's go back to our editing program and see what the problem is likely to be. I'm going to add a new PHP block down here. And this is the way that we will do it in the final script. What we need to do is to check whether the string or the array begins with a particular set of characters. So we'll use an if clause, and the condition will be strpos, and we're looking in this case in original, and we want to know whether it begins with color underscore. So we'll need a comparison operator, 2 equals signs, 0. So if it's at point 0, that should be true. So we'll have an opening bracket and the closing PHP tag. Then we'll have a paragraph which will tell us whether it's at the beginning. And then we need a closing brace for that if clause, and then we need else in case it's not at the beginning. Let's just copy that paragraph, paste it. The original string does not begin with color. Then of course we need a closing curly brace for that else block. So let us save that page, and if it begins with color, we should see this paragraph displayed. Refresh the page, and yes, we've got confirmation that it does indeed begin with color, but there's a snag. Let's go back. I'm British and I spell colour with a U. So do Canadians, Australians and many other countries. But this isn't what we're looking for. We're not looking for something that begins with that. But let's just see what happens. I'll save that, go back to the browser, refresh it, and it still says that the original string begins with colour. Why is that? Well, the reason is that PHP regards 0 as being falsy, and the strpos, the string pos function, returns position in the string if it finds it. If it can't find it, it returns false. And 0 is regarded as being falsy. It's implicitly false. So what is happening here is if it finds it at the beginning, fine. If it can't find it at all, it returns false. To get around this problem, what we have to do is to make sure that it really is 0. We do that by having 3 equals signs. If I now save that page and reload, the original string does not begin with color. If I go back and correct my spelling, resave the page and reload, the original string begins with color. So we've now found a way, using 3 equal signs, of identifying whether a string or the array key that we're going to be looking at begins with that particular phrase. What we need to do now is to extract the rest of it. And we saw earlier that color begins at position 6. So what we can do to extract it, in my PHP block here at the end, I'm going to use echo and another function called substring, substr. The first argument that it takes is the string that you're looking at. This is original. And the second argument is the position in the string from which you want to extract. Color begins at position 6, so the argument is 6. You can add a third argument, which is the length that you want to extract, but if you omit that third argument, you get the whole of the rest of the string, and that's exactly what we want. So the closing parenthesis and a semicolon, and if I just save that, go back to my browser and refresh, I've now got calla lilies with the beginning color underscore stripped off, and that is the way in which we will work in the order page for the Hansel and Petal site. So to find the position of a substring in a longer string, you need to use the strpos function, which returns the position of the first letter in the substring counting from 0. And if the substring can't be found, the function returns false. So if you're looking for a substring at the beginning, you need to use 3 equal signs. Let's just check that again. 3 equal signs like this to make sure that the result is actually 0 and not false. And to extract a substring, you use the substring function, substr. The first argument is the original string. The second argument is the starting position of the substring you want to extract. And there's an optional third argument that sets the length of the substring. Without the third argument, you get everything from the start position to the end. Now that we've seen how to find and extract a substring from a longer string, we can return to order.php in the Hansel and Petal site and organize the form data into new arrays. First, we need to create 3 empty arrays for color, quantity, and image. We only want those arrays if the form has been submitted, so we'll put them inside this if block here. I'm not going to delete this code here on lines 3, 4, and 5 because we'll use that later for some testing. So our new arrays, first one will be color, and I'm going to use the array keyword to create the empty array. This will work on all servers. Of course, if you're using PHP 5.4 or later on your server, you can use the shorthand version. This will work everywhere, so that's why I'm using the keyword. And then the last one will be image. Next, we need to go through the post array, and we'll use a for each loop to handle it, looking at each key and each value. So for each, all one word, and the array is $_post, all in caps. Then the keyword as, and then we'll have a temporary variable for the key. We'll call that key. The double arrow, and then value for each individual value as we go through the loop. So we need some curly braces for the loop, and then inside the loop, what we're going to do is to look for keys that begin with color underscore. Let's strip off that prefix and use the remaining substring as the new array key. And then we're going to assign the original value to this new array element. So that involves some decision making. So we use if, and the condition will use strpos, and we'll be looking for the key, and what we need to look for in that key is color underscore, and we need to make sure that it's right at the very beginning of the key. So 3 equals signs we'll make sure that the position is 0 and that we don't get a false result. And then we need the curly braces for that if block. And inside there, we're going to have the color array, and the array key needs to be created from a substring taken from the original key. So we use the substring function, and we're looking at key, and we want to start at position 6. In other words, after the underscore, after color, and a closing square bracket at the end of the array key. And we need to assign the value to it. Now that looks quite complicated. It is in some respects complicated code. When you've got complicated code, it's always a good idea to test immediately that it's working the way that you expect. So that's why I kept this print R down here. What I'm going to do is to change it from post to color, and then we'll save the page. We need to test it in a browser. If you load order.php straight away, you won't see anything because everything is inside that if block, which only runs if bouquet exists in the post array. In other words, the form has been submitted. So what we need to do is to go to the Build a Bouquet page. There it is. We don't really need to select anything. All we need to do is to click Add to Basket. And here we are. We've now got an array, and the array, let's just zoom in on that. The array keys are calla lilies, and the value is the file name for calla lilies, then gerbera daisies, and so on. So everything is working absolutely the way that we wanted it to do. So let's go back to order.php and continue with our coding. Most of it is going to be exactly the same as before, so I'm going to copy those 3 lines, lines 7 through 9, and then I'm just going to paste them twice, and then I'm going to change that if into else if, and the next one that we're looking for is qty underscore, and we need to make that shorter. It's no longer 6. The substring that we need to begin with begins at 4, and instead of being color, this will be our quantity array. And the next one that we are looking at will be the image array. So we're looking for the position of image underscore, and the array will be called image. And the key, the substring position that we want is 6. That is fine. So let us just test both of those. The first one is quantity. So in the printer, we'll change color to quantity. Save that. We need to go back and let's just refresh. There is quantity. They're all 0. All the names are coming out there. That's fine. So let's go back and test image, that image array. Save, go back, submit the page again, and there is the image array. These are images that don't have a choice of colors. So sunflowers, iris, and so on. Everything is working exactly the way that we want it. So the only thing that we need to do now is to add in a price array, and you can find a copy of the price array in prices.txt in the H&P underscore check /05 underscore 06 folder. So let's just go and get that. There it is, prices.txt. Just copy that array, go back to order.php, and we no longer need this here. Don't need to test anymore, and we can just paste the prices array in that position, and we're ready to move on to the next stage. So reorganizing the form data into these new arrays is going to make it much easier to script the rest of the order confirmation page. Doing this was relatively easy thanks to the logical structure of the original names used in the form. We used a for each loop to access each name and value in succession, and checking the first letters of the name of each element in the post array and stripping them off allowed us to assign the values to one of 3 new arrays using the flower name as the new array key. The next stage in processing the data submitted from the Build a Bouquet page in the Hansel and Petal site is to use a for each loop to display a table row for each type of flower that's been selected. Only 2 rows are going to be needed in the table at this stage, one for the table headers and one to go inside the loop to display the order. So let's scroll down and find the table. There it is, it begins there on line 55. The first table row contains the headers, and then there is another table row, and we'd need to get rid of all the remaining table rows. So just scroll down, select them all, and find the end of the table. There it is, and we just delete that, and we've got just 1 row left in the table apart from the header row. So this is going to be wrapped in a for each loop, and the only array that we've got that contains a value for each flower is the quantity array. So we'll use the quantity array for our loop. So let's add a PHP block here before the second table row, and for each, and we're going to use the quantity array, then the as keyword. Each key is a flower name, so I'm going to use that as the temporary variable. And each value is an amount, so the double arrow and then amount. Now normally with a for each loop you would use curly braces. I'm going to use a different syntax which will make it a lot easier to understand the structure, and instead of curly braces you can use a colon. So colon there at the end, and then after this table row we will insert another PHP block, and instead of a closing curly brace we use a keyword which is all one word, end for each, and then of course our semicolon at the end. And this will make it much easier to identify where the loop begins and where the loop ends as the script develops, because we'll be using a lot of curly braces in the final script. So in the first table cell here we've got calla lilies. Each time we go through the loop we want to be able to display the flower name. So it's going to be flower name. That'll be inside a PHP block. We will echo flower name. And in the fourth table cell we want to echo the amount. So let's add a PHP block there. Right, let's save that page, and we'll go to our browser, and we need to go back to the previous page and then submit. And now we've got calla lilies and sunflowers. We've got the names of all the flowers. We've got exactly the same image appearing each time here. That's not a problem. We've got 0 appearing each time. One little problem that we've got here is that the flower names have an underscore. So we need to get rid of that underscore. Let's go back, and we're echoing flower name here. So to remove that underscore, we need to use the string replace function. So it's str underscore replace. And this takes a number of arguments. The first argument is the string that you're looking for. So it's an underscore. We need to put that in quotes. Then a comma for the second argument, which is what you want to replace it with, which will be a string, and that will be a space, not an empty string, but a space. So it's a pair of quotes with 1 space between it. Then a comma. The third argument is the string that we want to work on, which is flower name. So we just need a closing parenthesis there, and if we save that, go back to the page and reload it. Doesn't matter about Reform being reloaded. There we are, calla lilies, Peruvian lilies. That underscore has been replaced with a space. So the order confirmation page is really beginning to take shape. Next we need to add the images and make sure a table row is displayed only if the quantity ordered is greater than 0. Now, one thing which I want you to check is that your table is looking correct. If it's not looking correct, you've got the for each loop in the wrong place. The next stage in building the order confirmation page is to make sure that the correct image is displayed for each flower. We also need to prevent a row from being displayed if a flower hasn't been ordered. And if nothing's been ordered, we need to display a message that the customer's basket is empty. The image is at the moment hard-coded on line 65. What we need to do is those with a choice of color are in the color array, and those without a choice of color are in the image array. So we need an if-else structure to display the correct image. So let's get rid of the name here. We still need the .jpg, but then we need to add in our PHP code block. And let's just make a few lines there so we can see where we're working. Right, inside there, what we need is an if-else structure. So if, and we need to check whether a particular value is set. And we're going to look first in the color array. So if is set color, and then the array key will be flower name. So if that is set inside that little block there, we need to echo color flower name. So if flower name is calla lilies, we'll get the picture of calla lilies. If we're going with sunflowers, which doesn't have a choice of flowers, that won't be in the color array, it'll be in the images array. So let's do our little else block here. And we need to echo image, and the array key is the same, it'll be flower name, because each time we go through that loop, the flower name will be part of the loop variables. So let's just save that and go to the browser. We can reload the page. It doesn't matter if we're resubmitting the form. And now we're getting the correct image for each type of flower. Things are beginning to look rather good. Okay, let's go back to our code. The table row should be displayed only if the quantity ordered is more than 0. So inside the loop, the quantity is stored in the amount temporary variable. It's this variable up here on line 63, amount. So we can use that to check if the amount is greater than 0. And if the amount is greater than 0, then we'll display the row. If it's not, we won't. So what we're going to do is, after for each amount, then we need to add in another line there and a conditional statement. If we're testing whether amount is greater than 0. And I'm going to use that alternative structure again. Instead of having an opening curly brace, I'm going to have a colon. And then we need to make sure that we put it in the correct place. It's just before the end of the table row and also before the end for each. That's why I was deciding to use these rather than curly braces. So we need to put it in just there. So it'll be end if, which is written all as one word, and a semicolon after that. So we can now save that, and we need to test it in a browser, but this time we need to make sure that there's some orders. So let's go back to the Build a Bouquet page, click that link there, and we'll select a few of those. We'll even change the color of the calla lilies to pink, and we'll just have a couple of sunflowers, and then we will add to basket. And we are now showing only the calla lilies and the sunflowers. And we've also got the correct image being shown for the calla lilies. So just one little bit more with this. We need to prevent the table from being shown at all if nothing has been selected. So let's go back to that code. And the whole of the table needs to be wrapped in a conditional statement. So let's put that conditional statement after the level 1 heading on line 53. Put in a PHP block. If, and then the condition. What we need to do is make two different tests here. The first one is to test whether the quantity array exists. The quantity array exists only if the form has been submitted. So that's the first test we need. And we want to test that it hasn't been submitted, so that quantity doesn't exist. So it's negative, it's the exclamation mark, then is set and quantity. So if the quantity array doesn't exist, that will become true. And then we need an or, that's two vertical pipes, And we need to check total quantity. If nothing has been added at all, the sum of the quantity array will be 0. And guess what? There's a very useful function called array sum, which checks the value of all the elements in an array. So array underscore sum, and then the quantity array. And we need to make sure that that is equal to 0. So 3 equals signs, then 0, and a closing parenthesis, and then an opening curly brace, closing PHP tag. So if nothing has been ordered, we need to add in a paragraph which says your basket is empty. And then we will have an else clause, so another PHP tag, the closing curly brace, so that's the closing curly brace of this if block here. Then we will have else, an opening curly brace there for this else block. We'll then close that PHP block, and the final curly brace goes right after the table and the order buttons div. So we need to go all the way down to the bottom of the page, and there is the order buttons div. There is the closing tag of the order buttons div on line 91. So that is where the closing curly brace of our else block goes. Making sure that you get your curly braces in the right place is one of the most difficult parts of working with a language like PHP. It's not easy to work with sometimes, but eventually you get used to it. So let's just save that and test it. And if we go directly to the view my order, your basket is empty. So that is working great. We go to build a bouquet and we order just one flower, and it's now working perfectly. So make sure that the if and else curly braces are in the right place, and everything should look tickety-boo, as we say in England. So the two main tasks still remaining are to extract the color from the image file name and to calculate the cost of the order.